Okay, welcome. Today we're going to do a case study using an actual assignment that came home to a student. We're going to apply the Cummins Framework from the CDE handbook to see if we can use that theory to improve the actual practice and the implementation in the classroom. So I'm going to show you the theory first to make sure you understand how this works. Basically, there are 4 quadrants, and they're along 2 lines that are continuum. So we have context-reduced language all the way up to context-embedded language. And you'll know from your 9 principles, when we talk about context, we talk about familiar principles that we can give kids to hook new language and new concepts to. Often what context looks like in practice is pictures, visual representations, actual real objects. For example, if you're teaching a child this is a chip, you may have a chip with you. If you're teaching a child this is a ship, you may have a picture of a ship. Then even if they don't know the English word for that, they have likely seen the image before and have a schema in their head of what that language might be so that they can attach to it. That's the one continuum. The other one is cognitively undemanding all the way up to cognitively demanding. And as you know, cognitive demand is how difficult something is academically for a student. So we have different quadrants. Up here, we have lots of context embedded, but very low cognitive demand. Okay, for example, maybe a physical education class where there's a game that's actually happening in front of them that contextualizes the idea of basketball or soccer or a sport that they're familiar with, that they're also watching it being played, but it's not super difficult for them to understand because they already have some understanding of it. It's not new information, it's not cognitively demanding. Here we have less context, but also not difficult cognitively undemanding. Here it's low context, but high cognitive demand, which is where students tend to really struggle. This is where much academic work in a mainstream classroom, in a typical mainstream classroom, is happening for an English language learner. It's very difficult for them cognitively because they're working at grade level with their peers. It should be demanding for everyone, but there's not a lot of context for them. The way they're going to learn best is if we take those same standards and those same principles and we add context or pictures for them. Pictures, realia, anything we can for them to understand the new information better. So we're not changing our standards, we're not changing our expectations, we don't lower standards for our ELLs. We give them context that helps them access the information. And that's what Cummins Framework helps us do in this situation. So let's take a look now at an actual assignment that came home. I'm sorry, move this around. Here is a young boy, kindergarten age. This note came home to his family from his teacher. I'll give you a moment to look at the note. And if you see here, just to give you the full assignment, there is a word bank at the bottom. So, considering this for a moment, you can see that this was nobody's best day. The teacher's clearly frustrated. Parents are not happy to get notes like this from teachers. And the child is clearly frustrated and not able to access this information. Nobody wants to have this day. And quite frankly, this is not a note I would recommend you send home. Try not to underline, try not to use red pen, try not to use exclamation points. A parent reading this is going to say, it is clear this child didn't understand this, and it's clear that, he really wasn't getting the help he needed to understand it. So here are some questions I want you to consider. based on what you've seen here. What are the academic objectives of this assignment? Where does the assignment shown fall on Cummins Framework? Which quadrant would you put it in currently? And what are some specific changes that you can make to the assignment based on Cummins Framework to improve this student's success? So you're looking for the standards or objectives that the teacher has. What are they trying to teach to the classroom as a whole? For this child in particular, let's say, where does this assignment shown fall on Cummins Framework? And what are some specific changes you can make to the assignment based on Cummins Framework to improve student success? These materials are also in your course materials on Blackboard. So pause the video at this point and answer these 3 questions. Please see what you can come up with on your own. Once you're finished, go ahead and continue the video and we'll talk over some of the things that you may or may not have considered with this. Okay, we'll start with the academic objectives. If you look at this for a kindergarten level, when you look at the assignment, probably what you'd see is that the academic objectives are that they're working on a phonics lesson with the IP endings. They're working on some handwriting, which is what that configuration station title indicates here, and also the shaped boxes. And they're also working on spelling, right, which is commonly done in conjunction with phonics. Also handwriting, commonly done in conjunction with phonics. These are grade objectives. They're grade level appropriate. They're in the Colorado Model Content Standards. They're exactly what should be happening for all kids at a kindergarten level, okay? These are things that we do not want to change, okay? We don't take out the handwriting piece just because we think that'll be simpler, because then we're changing what the kid is supposed to be learning, and then we're not giving our ELLs access to the same information as their grade level peers, which means we end up tracking them into lower achievement cycles. So we can't change our academic objectives. That's important. Don't change your academic objectives, always. The second question is, where does this assignment currently fall on the framework? Currently, this activity is high cognitive demand and low context, at least for this kiddo. We need to give the target language more context for Simon to access it. We can make these changes without changing the academic objectives. We've talked about that. How might we do this? I'm looking for specific solutions, specific modifications we might make to this assignment. To help you, you might consider the 9 principles in your textbook, particularly contextualization, since that's really what we're doing here. While you're thinking about this or reviewing your notes, I will show you the back page of the assignment, which is a little hard to see because of the remnants of the dark red marker that the teacher wrote. As you can see, the student was far more successful on this side of the paper. And I think we can also see that this side of the worksheet does have pictures, some context with which to help the child. What it doesn't have on this side is a word bank. The word bank is on the other side of the paper. And while you might say that your kindergarten age student can just flip the paper back and forth whenever they'd like, that is sometimes a step that is too much for a kid who is already learning a lot of cognitively demanding stuff. So having a word bank on both sides would likely be helpful. Notice this slide does have an attempt at contextualization, which I'm assuming this is meant to represent the word slip. However, slip is not a word that's included here in the word bank. It's actually kind of distracting the kid from what they need to be doing here on this paper. Okay. There are lots of things that we can change about this in order to help Simon. In fact, we can see that the simple addition of pictures would have helped this child tremendously. hopefully you came up with some of your own ideas. Here are a couple. Add pictures in the word bank on both pages. Give an example, and I'm hoping you came up with others. There are many things you could do to improve this assignment. What I'm going to show you is another assignment that really follows this same pattern and is asking the student to do similar things, but moves into the high cognitive demand and context embedded or high context section of the Cummins Framework. This would be a phonics lesson with PL words rather than IP endings. Okay? If you look here, you'll see the child is given one word at a time, the child is given a picture, and then 3 opportunities to practice handwriting and spelling. One where they trace large letters. In this one it's hard to see, but they trace dashed lines. Here the letters are provided in each box for the child to add on their own and do the shapes. For me personally, were I to use these materials, I would want the kid to have one opportunity to do it completely independently, where there are just blank boxes, as we see here in this original assignment. You can see that if you think about the original objectives, the actual mainstream objectives, this actually doesn't change anything about those, okay? We're still doing phonics, we're still practicing handwriting, we're still practicing spelling. We are doing all 3 of those things. We haven't made the academic content easier. It's still a cognitively demanding grade level activity. However, we have provided context and support, scaffolding, to help the child understand. This is from a Come On tutoring worksheet. These materials are already available. So these are materials that you would not have to create on your own. You don't always need to reinvent the wheel. If you see that your ELL students are struggling with curriculum like this, and this is what you've been given, don't change your standards, but look for a way to present the same information to all your students in a way that has more context. This is not something that you would give to only your ELL students or only your struggling students. If you design the activity from the beginning with context and with scaffolding without changing your academic objectives, then this is one worksheet that you can use for your entire kindergarten class that allows your upper level students to move ahead at the same pace they would be anyway with this assignment, but it also allows students who find this very cognitively demanding to be successful. My suspicion is our little Simon here would have completed this worksheet without any trouble at all, would not have had an unsuccessful day at school. The teacher would not have felt the need to write this note, which was not well received from parents who were then frustrated with everything. So really, what I'm hoping you've gotten from this is a couple of things. In conclusion, theories like this about language acquisition, when applied appropriately to specific assignments and classroom situations, can actually support student success regardless of language ability, okay, or language acquisition level. When you are creating your lesson and lesson planning, if you present this well thought out activity first that hits the same standards and objectives that you would be covering anyway, you will avoid all sorts of classroom frustration by your English language learners and any struggling student. Lesson planning and preparation and thinking about those 9 principles in advance is what makes students successful, and it's a simple difference. It's the difference between this and this. If you still have questions about the Cummins Framework or how to add context to questions, context to activities, please email me, come to my office hours, or find a friend. But this is something that's really essential for you to know moving ahead. I will be expecting to see the activities that you're presenting to students in your own future lesson plans for TESOL 370 to be well designed in a way that this is not. Thanks.